When we have chemical formulas, one of the things that we can do is determine the mass percent, or the mass percent of a component in the compound. The best way to look at that is by looking at this equation. The mass percent of component A is going to be the mass of A in the compound divided by the mass of the whole compound times 100%. This gives us an abundance of that atom in the compound and allows us to therefore determine what the percentage of every element is in a compound. And this is going to be important later on when we start talking about empirical formulas. But for now, let's try an example. Let's determine the mass percent of sodium in sodium chloride. To do that, we're going to take the mass of the sodium in sodium chloride and divide that by the mass of the whole sodium chloride, and then multiply by 100%. Well, when we look at the periodic table, the mass of sodium is 23.0 grams per mole, and the mass of chloride is 35.5 grams per mole. So the total mass of sodium chloride would be 58.5 grams per mole. We can put this into our equation, take 23.0 grams per mole and divide it by 58.5 grams per mole. And when we multiply by 100, we get 39.3%. So there's 39.3% sodium in sodium chloride. Well, this seems pretty straightforward. When we have one component of each, all we have to do is put those in and divide by the whole mass of the compound. But let's look at a more complicated example now. Let's go ahead and determine the mass percent of chloride in copper 2 chloride. Well, in copper 2 chloride, we're going to take the mass of the chloride and divide it by the mass of the whole copper 2 chloride. One of the things that we have to watch, though, is we have to multiply the mass of the copper times 2, because there's 2 units of copper in every formula unit of copper 2 chloride. So let's look at the periodic table. Copper is going to be 63.5 grams per mole, and chloride is going to be 35.5 grams per mole. So when we set up our equation, we're going to take 2 times 35.5 grams per mole for the grams of chloride on top, and divide that by the summation of 63.5 plus 2 times 35.5 grams per mole to get the mass of the copper 2 chloride on the bottom. When we take it and multiply it by 100%, we're going to get our answer. Well, let's simplify our math. We have 71.0 grams per mole of chloride on the top, and we're going to divide that by 134.5 grams per mole for the copper 2 chloride mass. When we multiply by 100%, that's going to give us 52.8%. So the mass percent of chloride in copper 2 chloride is 52.8%. These calculations are pretty straightforward, and you can try them out on a bunch of different compounds. Here I've given you 3 more practices to try before you get to class. Here I give you 2 ionic compounds and 1 organic compound that we've seen before. So make sure you practice these before you come to class, and we'll discuss them when you get to class.